I'm EGOYAN. My films deal with some sort of sense of loss or trauma, trying to recuperate their lives. Memory, either at a personal or communal level, of people trying to reconstruct their lives as the film is trying to reconstruct itself. But sometimes
Born in Cairo in 1960, a young Anton EGOYAN would leave with his Armenian parents to Canada in response to the rise of Arab nationalism across the United Arab Republic of the time, settling in Victoria, British Columbia. Having been knighted by the French government, a companion of the Order of Canada, and the state honors from the Republic of Armenia, EGOYAN is now an active member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the Directors Guild of America, and a part of the Directors Guild of Canada. These themes, technology, identity, nationality, purpose, are ones that appear timeless across of all EGOYAN's work. Concerned with the replication of identity, EGOYAN's own status as a hyphenated Armenian-Canadian, they provide a windowed glance into why these topics lay so heavy on the backs of his characters, and why they all seem to break down when no longer allowed to relate to them. For EGOYAN, the containers in which we store our experiences, our identities, express as much meaning as the experiences themselves. What I argue today is that EGOYAN's films plot us multiple viewpoints in the ways in which identity can be created in a landscape where there is no grounding identities. All of our identities exist hyphenated. The Canadian landscape invites us to be decentered, but that can also leave us open to harm. Family viewing invites us to witness a family ripped apart when their archetypical dynamics, the TV dad, the good son, the absent mother, are stripped away. These dynamics, as it should be noted, are television archetypes. The son witnesses how to act and be on his screens. As his grandmother, in a home for which her uncaring son put her in, entrenches herself in the same fantasies, staring blankly at a screen. In The Adjuster, we instead follow the plight of an insurance man, visiting sites of destruction in order to usher the harmed into a new life. When he comes home, he plays husband and father to his Armenian wife and her sister. His wife works at the censorship board, though however has been recording pre-show films and showing them to her sister to help her learn about Canada. We watch as Seta, the sister, burns the photos of her past, symbolically destroying what was, possibly recognizing its ephemeral nature, and replacing it with a new identity in a new land. Together we see a picture being painted. Identity, often national, corrupted by technology and changed irreparably. An EGOYAN speaking to us, see the signs. Run. William Beard, a Canadian film theorist at the University of Alberta, traced the development of Canadian cinema as a national idea, stating, "Canadian national cinema, if there is such an animal, is frozen out of its own theaters, can gain no purchase with its natural audience, which has been colonized by Hollywood to an extent not paralleled anywhere in the world." Beard sees the development of Canadian cinema in a constant shadow of an older, more developed brother, unable to station proper footing outside of vague aesthetic dimensions or geographical ties. What is present, would it find itself in opposition to the large genre cinema of Hollywood, instead liberating itself by grounding film in lived experience? A unique culture forms here, one in which national identity is putty to be played with and reshaped. For most English Canadians, we are Canadian only by the land in which we occupy. The film opens on our first glance of Van and his grandmother Armin from the perspectives of the TV mounted in the corner of the nursing home. They stare. Are they staring at us? Later, when we're home, we hear the laugh track and voiceover of a local sitcom broadcast. Van's father's love, Sandra, comes in from the door and a new laugh track, one that matches in sync with her sudden appearance, plays. Which is the sitcom? Van's father, Stan, is obsessed with creating home movies, seeing himself and his lovers represented on video recording themselves having sex. These relationships, the caring son who looks after his passing grandmother, the TV dad that is emotionally unavailable, and lastly, breaking this formula, Aline. Aline's mother shares a bed across from Armen in the nursing home. Aline is a phone sex worker, rapidly depersonalized and broken down from her status. She cannot afford a better nursing home for her mother. Aline is not a representational archetype. She is instead unique and isolated from the remaining cast alone. She has her own beliefs and feelings about her life, and she doesn't stare with a longing at whichever screen she can find. Van is not the same. He watches TV and video hoping that it will inform him how to live and be and exist. He has an archetype for which he feels as though he should play the good son. When Aline is away on a trip to Montreal, she asks Van to watch her mother in the meantime. However, once her mother learns of the nature of the trip, she chooses to take her own life and overdose on the prescription medication. Van notices, chooses to swap Armand's place with Aline's mother. This swap allows for Van to claim that it was his mother that had passed, fake a funeral, and eventually have Aline falsely sign Armand out under her own name. The switch, the derealization, depersonalization that has moved Van to this point and finally breaks through. As EGOYAN puts it himself, the whole action of the switching the bodies is such a detached, contrived, and manipulated gesture, and yet, as a character, we know he doesn't really understand the full implications of what he's doing. Plot points being added to one's life is something that is obviously derived from his television watching. David Harvey critically engaged with the power of technology to inform ourselves and our being. In The Fetish of Technology, he describes this phenomena, stating that as the intersection of nationality and industry, we face a double blind performed by all manner of social actors with differing opinions. However, each endows technology with causative powers to the point that they may uncritically, often unconsciously, engage with such technology as if it itself was the creator of that power. In short, we grant technology to tell us how to be. Often, we may watch identities and people dance around a screen. Take a sitcom, for example. We may infer what it means to be that identity in which we watch. However, how often do we take time to consider what that representation truly is? It was manufactured on some end to fill a role in a narrative. However, we may not see that. Instead, we infer that it is an apt representation of how we should be and how the story should be playing out. But here is where Van is engaging with his environment. Without a family or national identity to fall onto, he finds it comfortable in the power that the media technology can tell him exactly who to be. He cannot tell the difference between the media, between its creation, and between the real thing it is imitating. In The Adjuster, we follow Noah Render, an insurance adjuster currently living with his film censor wife and her sister, a soft-spoken Armenian woman. Noah's time is divided between his work, his relationships, and his family. Hera's work at the film censor board reaches turmoil when she is caught by a new employee recording the pre-censor films and bringing them home, showing them to her sister. The film grapples with this. To what degree does the act of censorship, or lack thereof, connotate power? By restricting what we see, how does it change us? In parallel, Bubba and Mimi, a bored, sexually deviant rich couple, attempt to con the family to buy out their home as an advertisement shoot. In reality, they're using the home to shoot implied pornography and ultimately ending with the home burning to the ground in a vicious act of hedonism, wherein which Noah's work finally follows him home. Hera's connection to the film board is unique. She records illegally, yes, but seemingly for no reason other than an interpersonal use to help her sister develop here in Canada. While Noah abuses the privileges of his position, using his only identity that grants him power to do so, Hera does not, and there is a distinction drawn between them. One that William Beard argues falls on ethnicity and gendered lines. Her identity as an Armenian woman is much different than Noah's decentered English-Canadian views. Therefore, the relationships to media and power may change in fold. Here we are met again with that power, the interplay between identity and technology that can only happen in a landscape where there's no burden of nationality. Through these two films, EGOYAN weaves identity back and forth between technology and ourselves and presents us all the ways in which it can alter us. The media landscape of modern Canada, its decenteredness, both gives us strength to connect to a diverse manner of people, but can also leave us open to interpreting the power to tell us who we are in all the wrong places. In the end, EGOYAN shows to us that we need to be cautious about our consumption. We need to be reflective, consume with intent, and ultimately find out the depth of our hyphenated identities.